Chapter 1020. On the Blood Moon ancient battlefield, in the central forbidden area, knowing destiny fought against the heavens and sealed the world with snow and ice. Hundreds of tides condensed and formed a huge ice block, trapping the clouds of resentment in the 9 heavens. The battle between the heavens and men reappeared after a few decades. In the past, he fought against Xian Song for the resurrection of the ghost girl. Today, he fought against the will of the heavens and earth for his own freedom. In the sky, the snowstorm raged and the frozen clouds of resentment shook continuously. After a while, they broke free from their bindings with a bang. The ice and snow shattered and scattered in all directions. The clouds of resentment stirred and a terrifying will pressed down. The laws of the heavens and earth received the order and pressed down from all directions. Spiritual 12th style, Thousand Sorrows hands. The power of the laws was shocking. Ningchen stood in the void and his ultimate chi rose. His left palm moved and the snowstorm in the sky condensed. The 1,000 hands turned into a wheel and the image of Guanyin appeared for the first time. The moon-worshipping clan's unique skill combined with Buddhism's secret skill. The 1,000 hands shook the heavens and earth. In the violent tremor, the power of the laws that attacked from all directions dissipated. The aftermath shook and the wind howled. The white-clothed figure stood in the void with her white hair dancing. Her unusually strong martial arts cultivation showed no signs of weakness in the face of the will of the heavens and earth. She had learned martial arts for 100 years and now she was fighting against the heavens. In the 9 heavens, the resentment clouds stirred violently. The will of the heavens and earth that merged with the resentment of all living beings gradually took shape. A huge bronze hand appeared in the resentment clouds. It was like an ancient giant and slammed down from the sky. Below, Ningchen saw this and stepped forward instead of retreating. The 9 heavens star-picking hand was used again. The power of the stars was raised to the extreme. In an instant, between the heavens and earth, a huge hand flashing with silver light went against the heavens and earth's giant palm. The collision of the 2 extremes caused an earth-shattering tremor. The aftermath surged and surged, shocking the 9 heavens and thousands of gods. In the void, the white-clothed figure took another step and approached the resentment clouds. Her unique skill was activated and a palm was raised to the heavens. The power of man against the heavens was shocking. In the 9 heavens, the resentment clouds took shape again and an ancient divine spear fell from the sky. The power of the laws surrounded the spear and the killing intent was shocking. The divine spear fell to the heavens and killed the heavens. The ancient divine weapon that shocked ghosts and gods cut through the night sky and fell from the sky. Ningchen squinted. The saber technique of the black saber in his right hand spun around, and the heavenly scripture reappeared. The peerless martial technique clashed with the worldly laws, which transcended the limits of the mortal world. The saber and the spear clashed. In an instant, starlight filled the sky. Amidst the dazzling brilliance, the black saber broke the divine spear. The white-clothed figure did not slow down. She continued to rush towards the dark clouds in the sky. The Tao of heaven and earth had been replaced by humans. The knowing destiny state, who had repeatedly defied the will of heaven, had long lost their fear of heaven and earth. With the crazy bone in hand, they went against heaven. In the face of the humans' disobedience, a violent wind blew in the 9 heavens, stirring up the resentful clouds. Bolts of lightning appeared, and in the next moment, 10,000 bolts of furious lightning struck down, destroying the world. Under the cloud of resentment, Ningchen focused his mind and stepped forward. His crazy bone gathered the spiritual energy from all directions and gathered the power of the 9 continents. With one slash, he slashed the sky. A huge black saber light slashed open the void, and a terrifying spatial crack appeared. Wherever the saber light passed, heaven and earth were destroyed. Unparalleled combat prowess in the mortal realm, surpassing the stepping celestial realm and directly approaching the worldly celestial realm. After cultivating for 100 years, why would he fear a battle with Wentian? In the void, the black saber light that soared into the sky became more and more powerful. It broke through 10,000 bolts of lightning and reached the sky. The heavens and earth trembled, shocked by the defiance of the humans below. Endless power of laws gathered once again, and lightning condensed into form. A war god clad in golden armor appeared, holding a lightning spear in his hand. He broke through the air and descended. The lightning spear collided with the black saber. With a shocking explosion, heaven and earth were in chaos. The aftermath of the collision hit. The god of war in golden armor was covered with lightning. In a flash he came down below. The divine spear waved, and 1,000 bolts of lightning roared. Ningchen was fearless. The black saber met the attack head-on. In the battle between the saber and the spear, the lightning was dazzling. The god of war in golden armor was powerful. He copied the power of the strong in the world, and his moves were endless. Ningchen was not moved at all. The Crazy Bones moves were fast and heavy. Ningchen's amazing attainments in the saber became more and more amazing. The butterfly taught martial arts. The god of sabers taught Ningchen without holding back. In just a few years, Ningchen's saber skills had improved by leaps and bounds. One day he would surpass Ningchen. Boom! In close quarters, the saber and spear clashed again. Ningchen was not afraid of heaven's might. His moves were majestic, and his moves were shocking. One saber shook the divine spear. 1,000 pounds of force erupted, and the god of war in golden armor was sent flying. Ningchen ignored it. He took a step forward and charged into the sky again. As he got closer to the clouds of resentment, heaven and earth trembled more violently. The rules stirred, forming many saber and sword auras that broke through the sky. Ningchen's figure stopped in the sky. His palms moved, and wind and snow swept out, attacking the sky. The wind and snow blocked heaven's might. The saber and sword auras were destroyed, unable to pass through the barrier. Unparalleled in the world. In the wind and snow, Ningchen held his saber and shouted. The sky scroll absolute style reappeared in the world. The saber that broke through the starry sky drew a shocking black arc in the sky. The saber shocked the soul, and everything was destroyed. Heaven and earth could not bear it. The god of war in golden armor, who had just arrived, was also affected and was sent flying 300 meters. Ningchen took a step forward, and his figure flew out. He instantly arrived under the clouds of resentment. Spiritual 12 styles. Ningchen used the absolute style again, and its power shook heaven and earth. He raised his hand and grabbed the clouds of resentment. The open heavenly book was extremely majestic. Immediately, wind and snow spread in the sky, sealing the void within 1,000 miles. Soul dispersing hand. One palm dispersing the soul, and heaven and earth were overturned. In the 1,000 miles of ice, huge cracks appeared. It was shocking and shocking. After a few breaths, there was a loud bang. The ice and snow in the sky shattered. The clouds of resentment wailed and dissipated rapidly, trying to escape. You want to leave? Difficult. Ningchen snorted coldly. He took a step forward, and the wind and snow rushed to his head. His white hair danced wildly, and his peerless foundation was fully unleashed. 4 scrolls at the same time, no life in heaven and earth. The open heavenly book caused chaos to reappear. Behind Ji Ming, heaven and earth manifested. The primordial world was created, and chaos spread. Lightning cut through the darkness, and all things were revived and destroyed. Ningchen stretched out his hand and grabbed the clouds of resentment. At this moment, the formless thing was actually restrained, and it was difficult for a person to break free. Demonic body, I'll leave it to you. With a light shout, Ningchen used his shocking cultivation to trap the clouds of resentment. Demonic chi surged around him, and behind him, 100 feet tall heavenly demon appeared. After a few years, the demonic body reappeared. The resentment of all life, the will of heaven and earth, so what? A cold voice resounded between heaven and earth. The demonic body walked out, and his demonic chi was like a stormy sea. He raised his hand, and the demonic chi filled the sky. The black demonic chi that covered 1,000 miles swallowed the heavens and earth. It forcefully absorbed the clouds of resentment and trapped them in its body. The two bodies joined forces to devour the will of heaven and earth. Such a shocking move made Xian Tsang furious. 10,000 lightning bolts struck back crazily. Get lost. The demonic body shouted coldly, and its figure changed. The 100-feet-tall demonic body stood tall, and its demonic fist struck the sky. In the terrifying tremor, a huge crack appeared in the sky. The heaven and earth could not bear the supreme demonic chi, and it wailed endlessly. Continue. Below, Ningchen said coldly. His hands activated the peerless foundation and firmly held the clouds of resentment in place. Chapter 1021. In the central forbidden area, human beings fought against the heavens, and Xianzong was enraged. Tens of thousands of thunderbolts blasted toward those who defied the heavens. The two bodies joined forces to blast away the thunderbolts. The main body used the power of the heavenly book to trap the resentful cloud. The demonic body released its demonic aura to devour the will of heaven and earth. The two bodies were incomparably powerful, shocking the world. They fought against the heavens and suppressed the will of heaven and earth. On the ground, inside the four sacred walls, the green-faced spirit and the golden-haired corpse god looked at the great battle above with fear and shock. At this moment, their instinct told them that the humans above must not be provoked. In the sky, the main body was trapped in the resentful cloud. Its hands were like thousands of chains. No matter how the resentful cloud struggled, it could not break free. In a few breaths, below, the golden-armored war god swept over with his spear. The will of heaven and earth condensed into a body of laws. Its strength was strong, and it wanted to solve the crisis of the resentful cloud. Get lost. Seeing this, the demonic body stepped out. The shocking demonic power instantly shattered the void and severely injured the golden-armored war god. The collapsed golden starlight scattered bit by bit. The golden-armored war god was affected by the demonic power. Half of his body was crushed, and it was extremely miserable. Die! The golden-armored war god was seriously injured, but the demonic body did not give up. It punched down heavily, and in the great horror of shattering the void, the golden-armored war god completely collapsed and disappeared between heaven and earth. The supreme demonic power, heaven and earth were furious. Tens of thousands of thunderbolts gathered again and blasted toward the demonic body. The demonic body was fearless. Its bronze skin was surrounded by black demonic aura. It punched and shattered the thunder. The heavenly power was amazing, and the demonic power was even more shocking. The battle between the heavenly demons was getting more and more intense. Pieces of the void were shattered in the great battle. The scene was terrifying. Not far away, the resentful cloud was restrained by the main body of knowing destiny. It could not move an inch. The open heavenly book turned the chaotic energy into reality. It restrained the will of heaven and earth and helped the demonic body to devour the heavens. What a bold act! The two bodies joined forces to defy the heavens. This battle, they were determined to defeat the heavens. Boom! At the end of the 9 heavens, somewhere, 100 feet thick green thunderbolt crashed down. The wrath of heaven did not stop for a long time. It sent down layers of thunder to kill those who defied the heavens. You focus on your work. I'll block these things. Ningchen said in a deep voice as he looked at the azure lightning descending from the sky. He tore the resentful cloud with his left hand and grasped the air with his right hand. The black saber appeared again. The saber turned into azure frost as it faced the 9 heavens' wind and thunder. The wind and snow drifted in the sky. In the wind and snow, the black saber light streaked across the sky and crashed into the 1,000-foot-long green thunder. Two extremes collided and all methods sunk into oblivion. In the wild shockwaves, the demon body walked out. Demonic energy once again drowned out the clouds of resentment and swallowed up the will of the world. Roars that sounded like the struggles of wild beasts could be heard from the resentment clouds, shaking the heavens and the earth. However, they were restrained by the energy of the primal chaos and couldn't break free. With a distance of 10,000 feet, the two of them joined forces to trap the world. As time passed, the struggle of the resentful cloud grew weaker and weaker, and the will of the world within it was gradually swallowed up by the demonic energy. In the battle between heaven and man, man finally defeated heaven's will. Above the 9 heavens, the thunder gradually weakened, and it was difficult to reverse the situation. An hour later, the clouds of resentment in the sky dissipated, and the will of the world was completely devoured. The two figures retracted their hands one after another. The demonic aura returned, and the chaos dissipated. The two figures looked at each other and merged again. In the sky, the white-haired figure in white clothes swallowed up the will of the world. His aura became even more terrifying. He stood above the 9 heavens, as if he was a part of the world, and no one dared to disobey him. At this moment, outside the Blood Moon ancient battlefield, in the sky above the supreme desolate ancient plains, an illusory figure walked out. Looking at the imprisoned Blood Moon ancient battlefield, he raised his hand and slapped forward. The Emperor's might shook the 9 heavens. The terrifying power broke through the restrictions of time and space, and directly entered the Blood Moon ancient battlefield. In the next moment, above the central forbidden area, a huge golden hand slapped down. With a loud bang, it shattered the world within 10,000 miles. In the sky, Ning Chen felt it, and his expression sank. He took a step forward and instantly arrived at the saint wall below. He opened his hands and the saint wall closed. The impact of the Emperor's might caused the world inside and outside the saint wall to collapse continuously. It was indescribably terrifying, and it was several times more powerful than the heaven's might. The power to destroy the world was shocking. Inside the saint wall, Ning Chen's figure flashed past. Looking at the collapsing saint wall, he didn't dare to delay. He summoned the Eastern Emperor Bell, and directly through the green-faced Yin spirit and the golden-haired corpse got into it. After doing this, Ning Chen took a step forward and turned into a ray of light, hiding inside the immortal Bell. After a few breaths of time, outside the saint wall, the terrifying Emperor's might broke through the saint wall and the barrier of the forbidden area. It destroyed everything and devoured the surrounding world. At this moment, all the young geniuses in the Blood Moon ancient battlefield looked at the central forbidden area in shock. Emperor? How could it be? Why would the Emperor's might appear in the Blood Moon ancient battlefield? In the north of the ancient battlefield, Tian Exen felt the destructive might from afar, and his body trembled. His eyes were filled with disbelief. Outside the Blood Moon ancient battlefield, in the sky above the supreme desolate ancient plains, the illusory figure looked at the situation in the Blood Moon ancient battlefield and frowned. Just as he was about to make another move, rays of light shot out from the 9 heavens, and an equally powerful chi appeared. The Emperor's might descended, suppressing the heavens. Emperor Go, how have you been? The illusory figure looked at the old lady descending from the sky and said indifferently, "You've crossed the line." The old lady held her walking stick in front of him and said coldly, "No matter where I go, I will not be restrained by anyone." The illusory figure was unmoved and said indifferently, "I don't care where you go, but I can't ignore you attacking the people in the ancient battlefield." The old lady said coldly. The illusory figure sneered and said, "Doesn't the sorcerer tribe also want the Yin Yang non-jade? If that young man dies, the holy maiden will have a better chance. The sorcerer tribe has not reached the stage where we will do anything to achieve our goals. I can't do it to a junior who has only cultivated for a little more than 100 years. The old lady said sarcastically. Hearing this, the illusory figure's face darkened. The Emperor's might vibrated, and his killing intent was shocking. Emperor Go sneered, and he struck the ground with his hand. An emperor's might that was not inferior to the former's burst out, piercing through the sky and shaking the stars in the 9 heavens. Just as the two emperors were about to fight, in the central forbidden area of the Blood Moon ancient battlefield, the heavens and earth collapsed. Thousands of miles were turned into nothingness, and a terrifying spatial storm roared, swallowing everything around it. In the spatial storm, a mottled immortal bell appeared. In the next moment, Ning Chen walked out and waved his hand to keep the immortal bell. He looked at the chaotic spatial storm with a cold expression. This is troublesome. It was not the first time he had experienced the terror of the spatial storm. The flow of time here was not the same as the outside world. Once he got lost, he would not be able to make it in time for the 3 years. At that moment, outside of the Blood Moon ancient battlefield, in the supreme desolation ancient land, An illusory figure looked at the battlefield and smiled coldly. It seems like I don't need to do anything anymore. Within 10 years, the turbulence in the forbidden area won't stop. That person won't have a chance to fight for the yin and yang non-jades anymore. Emperor Go, you should thank me this time. If it weren't for me, the Holy Virgin would have an incredible opponent. After saying this, the illusory figure in front of the old lady gradually faded away, and the emperor's might that suppressed the heavens dissipated. In an instant, it completely disappeared. Chapter 1022. On the Blood Moon Ancient Battlefield. Inside the collapsed central forbidden area, Ning Chen stood inside. He looked at the whistling interspatial storm around him and stopped moving. A ruler attacked, shattering the void within 5,000 kilometers with a single palm. The shocking power caused the heavens to tremble. In the void, spatial turbulence surged. Dangers were everywhere, making it difficult for people to walk out. Outside the void, the laws of heaven and earth kept repairing the collapsed void. However, the remaining power of a ruler in the world slowed down the repair process. It would be difficult to restore it to its original state within 10 years. In the turbulence, Ning Chen stopped for a long time, thinking about countermeasures. He could not be trapped here for too long. Otherwise, he would not be able to make it in 3 years. What can we do? Demonic chi surged, and the devil walked out. It looked at the surging space-time turbulence in all directions and asked in a serious voice. It's not difficult to get out of here. The difficult part is how to get out before the 100 Clans competition ends. Ning Chen looked around and seriously observed the situation of the space-time turbulence. Why would a ruler attack? Our identities shouldn't have been exposed yet. The devil stood in the void and asked with a cold expression. Perhaps it's because we devoured the will of heaven and earth earlier that attracted the attention of a ruler. The races are so concerned about the result of this 100 Clans competition, so it's not strange for a ruler to attack. At this point, a strange look flashed across Ning Chen's face. The will of heaven and earth had almost ignored it. Release that sky. It came from the central forbidden area, so it should be able to repair this world as soon as possible. Ning Chen looked at the devil beside him and said. Hearing this, the devil frowned slightly and said, if we release it, I'm afraid it'll find a chance to escape. In a place like this, it'll be difficult for us to stop it. It's fine. Ning Chen replied, sentient beings will have fear. I'll set up restrictions in its body. As long as it's not afraid of its consciousness being erased, it can escape. The devil nodded, and demonic chi surged around its body. Amidst the demonic chi, an invisible resentful cloud appeared. The powerful will of heaven and earth made it so that no one dared to ignore it. Ning Chen moved and took a step into the demonic chi. He pointed his finger, and thousands of restrictions gathered and broke into the resentful cloud. Layers of restrictions spread and covered the resentful cloud. After a moment, the restrictions disappeared, and peace returned. Ning Chen stopped and looked at the devil. He said calmly, it's done. The demonic body nodded. It retracted its demonic chi and released the resentment cloud. After regaining his freedom, the will of the world within the resentful clouds quickly recovered. The clouds churned, wanting to escape. Ning Chen snorted coldly. He clenched his right hand, and a powerful force burst out. Countless seals were activated within the clouds of resentment, and they restrained the clouds of resentment. If you don't want to disappear completely, behave yourself. Ning Chen said indifferently as he walked forward step by step. His expression turned cold as he said, you are more familiar with this place than anyone else. It shouldn't be difficult for you to repair it. The resentful cloud struggled. However, it was restricted by the divine restriction and was unable to break free. I'll say it again. If you don't want to disappear completely, then do as I say. Since I can trap you, I can also completely erase your will. As he finished speaking, killing intent flashed in Ning Chen's eyes. A strange light rose from his right hand, and a bloody aura filled the air. It was bone-chilling. The resentful cloud sensed this and immediately stopped struggling. Although its consciousness was still hazy, it could still sense how dangerous this human was. Do I need to repeat what I should do? Ningchen raised his hand and pressed it on the cloud of resentment. Wind and snow gradually rose and drifted in the world. However, the murderous intent in the snow became more and more shocking. "Spirit of my life." The resentful cloud trembled, and its consciousness was sent out. It was weak and hazy. Sensing the spiritual fluctuation from the resentful cloud, Ningchen narrowed his eyes slightly. The resentful cloud's consciousness had grown to such an extent. It was truly shocking. "Do what you need to do." Ningchen withdrew his hand and turned to walk away. He glanced at the devil's body not far away and said, "Look after it." The devil's body nodded and calmly responded. The resentful cloud stirred. Although it was hazy, the unusually heavy will of heaven and earth filled the air and began to repair the void that was shattered by the ruler. With the two bodies as the center, the power of laws gathered. The shattered void was repaired inch by inch, and it kept spreading in all directions. The void was boundless. It would take an unusually long time to completely repair it. However, the space inside and outside the void began to repair at the same time, and the time needed was instantly reduced. In the void, a part of heaven and earth was restored. The two bodies stood in it and felt the flow of time again. Ningchen watched the resentful cloud repair the space, and his gaze never left it for a moment. Creation was always the most difficult thing. Whether the purpose was a dead object or a living thing, only heaven and earth and the supreme deity of the seven ultimate celestial realm could control the power of creation. Time passed day by day. In the void, the repaired space kept spreading. Ningchen watched the process of the world's restoration with great concentration, and he remembered all the changes in his heart. For countless years, no one had been able to completely master the time and restriction of the underworld because no one could truly understand the laws of time and space. There were too many changes in the laws of time and space, more than millions of them. There was a limit to human strength, and it was almost impossible to completely master them. Having lived 2 lives, Ningchen's spiritual strength was far stronger than ordinary people. Although he was limited by his aptitude and his cultivation was slow, no one could deny that his wisdom and comprehension were terrifying. For several months, Ningchen did not do anything. He kept staring at the restoration of time and space, and he remembered every change in heaven and earth. Just as knowing destiny was trapped in the spatial turbulence, the outside world was undergoing drastic changes. Under the situation of the 4 emperors, several extremely powerful descendants of the royal bloodline showed their abilities and fought for a place under the 4 forces. As the 3-year period approached, the peace between the various forces was gradually broken. The fight for the celestial jades gradually heated up. In the south of the ancient battlefield, the young master of the ancient city of Jueyang appeared again to challenge Jin Lin. The battle shocked the world. His terrifying swordsmanship cut open one mountain after another. This time, even someone as strong as the crown princess of the Scaled clan did not have the upper hand. The earth-shattering battle attracted the attention of all the strong cultivators. In the end, Guexian put away his sword and left without any warning. No one knew why. After the battle, Guexian's name was clearly imprinted in the hearts of all the forces. A terrifying swordsman who was strong enough to challenge the descendants of the royal family was remembered clearly. In the following year, the flames of war were everywhere. Even the 4 descendants of the royal bloodlines had conflicts several times. The situation was tense, and a great battle could break out at any moment. Unknowingly, there were only about 10 months left until the 3-year period of the 100 Clans competition. In the Forbidden Central area, knowing destiny still had not walked out. More than a year had passed. Outside the spatial turbulence, less than 10% of the void that was shattered by the ruler's palm had been restored. It seemed that it would be difficult for the Forbidden Central area to recover within 10 years. Nevertheless, in the spatial turbulence that no one could see, a new world kept spreading in all directions. A white-haired figure in plain clothes stood quietly in it. The aura of time circulated around him, and the divine restriction evolved and changed. Chapter 1023. In the Central Forbidden Land, a new world was reborn in the void. It continued to spread until it reached 1,000 miles away. In more than a year, The two worlds inside and outside the void worked together to repair the broken spacetime. In the turbulence of spacetime, above the repaired world, a white-haired figure in plain clothes stood in the air. After waiting for a year, he walked forward. He walked at a steady pace. As he walked in the void, ripples spread out. His white hair danced in the wind. It was abnormally dazzling. At the end of the world, the turbulence of space-time whistled. It was violent and messy, making people shudder. Ningchen raised his hand. A strange light rose. The aura of the underworld and time flowed, spreading forward. Wherever the strange light passed, the turbulence of space-time calmed down and returned to peace. It was the first time in history that a divine restriction had been completed. Demonic body, we should go, Ningchen said calmly. Soon after, he strode forward. His steps were so close yet so far. The laws of space-time flickered. Everywhere he passed, the turbulence calmed down. Behind him, the demonic body grabbed the resentful cloud and followed. Both of them were about to leave. Outside the central forbidden land, as space-time recovered from destruction, spiritual qi gathered from all directions. Gradually, it formed a huge spiritual qi whirlpool that spanned thousands of miles. It was shocking. All over the ancient battlefield, the powerful cultivators of the 100 tribes paid attention to the direction of the central forbidden land. After the chaos, there would definitely be a huge change. With such shocking spiritual qi fluctuations, there might be unexpected surprises. In the north, in the world of ice and snow, which Tian Xen led the geniuses of the 100 tribes south. They rushed towards the central forbidden land first. The members of the witch tribe were naturally more sensitive than ordinary people. As the witch tribe's saint, she knew what was going to happen in the central forbidden land before anyone else. Just as Tian Xen was heading south, the other 3 territories sent secret letters to the 3 descendants of the royal bloodline, reporting the movements of the sorcerer tribe's saintess. Let's go! Almost at the same time, the 3 descendants of the royal bloodlines gave the order to set off towards the central forbidden land. Although they did not know what was going to happen in the central forbidden land, the witch tribe's saint's decision was never wrong. They just needed to keep an eye on her. The 4 emperors moved together. The descendants of the royal bloodlines saw the direction the 4 emperors were heading and chose to move at the same time. In an instant, the situation changed. The gazes of the prodigies of the 100 races all gathered in the direction of the central forbidden grounds. At this moment, everyone could guess that something incredible was going to happen in the central forbidden area. Otherwise, the 4 emperors wouldn't have all gone there. A month later, in front of the central forbidden grounds, Tian Xien, Hong Yuan, DZ and Jin Lin, the 4 successors of the royal bloodline, all arrived. They each stood in one direction, waiting for the changes that were about to happen in the forbidden grounds. A few days after the arrival of the 4 emperors, several descendants of the royal bloodline also arrived. Their imposing manner was not inferior to that of the 4 emperors, causing people to raise their eyebrows. A mere member of the royal family dares to compete with us? It seems like you have already forgotten the fear you should have. The crown prince said coldly as he glanced at the newcomer with a murderous look in his eyes. The sovereign son of the Rock Spirit clan is not very strong, but he has quite a temper. As he spoke, a young man holding an ancient sword walked out from behind the descendants of the royal bloodlines. He had starry eyes and a pair of sword-like eyes. He was extraordinarily handsome. The young lord of Sunrise Royal City had reappeared. The aura of B-Cloud in his hand was astonishing. It was a divine weapon, the Royal City Divine Sword. It's you again. Seeing the newcomer, the crown prince's face darkened. His eyes were filled with murderous intent as his true yuan surged, ready to attack at any time. The royal family has been high and mighty for too long. You've forgotten that strength is what matters in this world, not the identity of a descendant of the royal family. Right at this moment, extremely cold yin qi permeated the air from afar. Amidst the cold wind, a dark red figure strode over. His overly delicate face seemed somewhat pale. The young master of the imperial city of Jueyang had arrived. His sword pressure was incomparably powerful, shocking everyone present. Gu Xian arrived. Not far away, a figure in green appeared. Beside him was a muscular white wolf. His aura was so powerful that it did not lose out to the sky prides of the 100 races. Song Ming appeared and stood quietly at the side. He had not said a single word since the beginning. The young lord of the Howling Moon royal family, Song Ming, was known as the strongest descendant of the royal bloodline. His strength was unfathomable, and even Jin Lin, a member of the royal family, did not want to offend him. So everyone is here. Xiao Xiao greets all of you. After the 3 kings arrived, not far away, the void began to swirl. A pink aura filled the air, and a seductive figure appeared. Her face was beautiful, and she wore a light pink muslin dress. Her figure was curvaceous, hot and alluring, making one's mouth go dry. The saintess of the fox race had arrived. Her pure face, seductive figure, and temperament were the complete opposite. Her every frown and smile made everyone unable to look away. Demoness. The charm of the fox race was beyond imagination. The crown prince calmed himself down and said in a deep voice, "I'm a fox girl, not a demoness." Xiao Xiao looked at the crown prince in front of her and smiled. There was a beauty in the north. She was peerless and independent. She could topple a city or a country. The saintess of the fox race was a perfect example of a femme fatale. There might be a beauty who was not inferior to the saintess of the fox race. However, the fox race's charm was unmatched by anyone. With the appearance of the 4 strongest descendants of the royal bloodline, the 4 emperors' expressions turned serious. They did not dare to underestimate them. Boom! Right at this moment, in front of the spatial turbulence, the spiritual energy whirlpool shook violently. The aftermath surged and spread out in all directions. The 4 emperors and the prodigies of the 100 races focused and immediately retreated. They were unwilling to be affected by the terrifying energy of heaven and earth. In the next moment, in the shaking spiritual energy whirlpool, a shocking scene occurred. Hundreds of thousands and millions of divine jades quickly condensed. Every single one of them was fused with spatial fragments, and the powerful power of laws lingered around them. They were extremely extraordinary. The change that they had been waiting for many days finally appeared. The 4 emperors regained their senses and immediately moved. Streaks of light streaked across the sky and directly charged towards the spiritual energy whirlpool in front of them. Divine jades were not common, and divine jades that were fused with the power of laws were even more precious. Their value was not inferior to any divine weapons. The 4 emperors made their moves. Just as they were about to touch the divine jades, 2 streaks of sword light slashed across from behind them. One was Yin and the other was Yang, and their might was astonishing. Ness Yao and Guxin made their moves. The power of the 3-legged golden crow and the power of the great Yin divine sword tore through the air at the same time, slashing towards the 4 emperors. The 4 emperors sensed it and made their moves at the same time. Their powerful cultivation exploded, scattering the 2 streaks of sword energy. After being obstructed for a moment, the 4 emperors did not pay much attention to it. With a flip of their palms, they poured out their energy towards the divine jades that were falling like rain in front of them. The 2 kings were difficult to stop. Just as the 4 emperors were about to succeed, a change suddenly occurred. The surrounding heaven and earth suddenly turned sluggish. The wind stopped, the clouds stopped, and everything seemed to have died. Everyone, you have crossed the line. At this moment, in the violent spatial turbulence, a calm voice sounded. The laws of space paved a path, and a white-haired figure in plain clothes walked out. He was alone, yet it was as if a world had descended. It was so heavy that it made it difficult for people to breathe. His eyes flashed. The 4 royal descendants had indeed held back, but that young Lord Ning had not used his full strength either. While the 2 were talking, the battle in front of them began again, and the situation was even more intense. Outside the battle, the 2 stared at the front, ready to help at any time. The battle was difficult to end. Hong Yuan, Jin Lin, and the prince worked together. Not far away, Tian Xen controlled thunder and wind, and the 2nd divine general appeared. The wind around him swirled, and he entered the battle again. Facing the four emperors, Ning Chen's expression turned serious. The aura of time circulated around him, suppressing the speed of the three's attacks. The wind from the fist arrived. Within the domain of time, all the attacks became slow, as if they had fallen into a quagmire, and their speed was greatly reduced. 12 styles of spiritual rhino, 8 void renegade dragons. When the battle reached its climax, Ning Chen turned his palm and poured out his energy. In the wind and snow, 8 dragons roared and appeared. The 8 dragons appeared, and the wind and snow changed. They rushed towards the 4 emperors in front of them. The 4 emperors' expressions turned serious, and they did not dare to hold back anymore. They shouted at the same time, and their energy soared into the sky. In an instant, 4 pillars of light soared into the sky. A terrifying pressure shook the blood moon in the sky. At this moment, the 4 kings in charge of guarding the desolate ancient plains outside the ancient battlefield were all shocked. The mortal realm's celestial mirror. It was the 4 imperial bloodline heirs. What had happened in the ancient battlefield to make the 4 imperial bloodline heirs release their seals at the same time? What an incredible young man! Clouds rolled in the sky, and an emperor descended from the sky. She looked at the ancient battlefield in front of her, and her eyes flashed. She had already seen that this young man was not simple in the 10,000-mile chain city. However, she had never thought that his true strength would be so great that the 4 imperial bloodline heirs had no choice but to release their seals. No matter what the result of this battle was, this young man was undoubtedly the strongest of the younger generation. In this glorious era, the young geniuses of the 100 races had appeared in large numbers. It was supposed to be the era of the 100 races geniuses, but now it seemed that in the future, the geniuses of the 100 races would have to live under this young man's shadow. On the ancient battlefield, under the blood moon, the 4 imperial bloodline heirs released their seals, and their mortal realm immortal mirror shocked everyone. The 4 emperors released their seals, and their auras rose sharply. Those who were weaker were immediately pushed back, unable to withstand the power of the mortal realm. Outside the battlefield, Gu Xen looked at the 4 imperial bloodline heirs in front of him with a heavy expression. The real battle was about to begin. Compared to the strength of the 4 imperial bloodline heirs, he was more concerned about whether the 4 of them could force young Master Ning to use his sword. Under the moon, the 4 emperors used their full strength. Under the terrifying pressure, the surrounding heaven and earth kept shaking. Mountains collapsed and the ground caved in. In front of the 4 emperors, Ning Chen looked at the 4 without any change in his expression. He took a step forward and moved first. The black blade disappeared, and Ning Chen used the spiritual rhino ultimate technique and the Qilin ultimate technique. Wind and snow swirled around Ning Chen, and he arrived in front of DZ in an instant. Their palms intersected, and the 8 dragons roared. Ning Chen released his shocking foundation and threw out a heavy punch. The Crown Prince's expression darkened as he unleashed his red dust realm cultivation base and blocked the incoming attack with his fist. Under everyone's gaze, the 2 primes of the younger generation clashed again. Fist and palm collided, and a terrifying force collided. An earth-shattering shockwave spread out. Everywhere it passed, mountains sank and seas were overturned, and heaven and earth disintegrated. It was a scene of doomsday. Gods and ghosts were frightened. In the crazily swirling sand waves, a white-clothed figure appeared. His white hair danced in the wind, and he was as still as a mountain. Chapter 1025. In the battle under the moon, the 4 emperors teamed up to fight Ji Ming. Their bloodlines were unsealed, and their martial arts were fully unleashed. In the mortal realm, the divine power was shocking, and a terrifying pressure swept out, shaking the entire central forbidden area. Ning Chen moved and attacked before anyone else. He used the Qilin and the star-plucking arts at the same time. In the wind and snow, his palm moved the world. The Crown Prince focused and turned his palm to block the incoming attack. The 2 experts clashed again, and a terrifying power shook the ground. Wherever the aftershock passed, the ground caved in, and dust billowed for thousands of miles. The power of the mortal world was shocking, and it surpassed the mortal body. Its divine power was shocking. In the aftershock, the white-clothed figure appeared. Without any hesitation, she moved again and opened the sky again. The rumbling shook the 9 heavens. In the dust billows, the 2 supreme experts of the younger generation clashed. The destructive power was shocking. Outside the battle, the 3 descendants of the royal bloodline did not delay any longer. They rushed out and joined the battle. Their bloodlines were unsealed, and the 4 emperors displayed their peerless abilities. A huge Dharma appeared behind them, and the shocking power forced the geniuses of the 100 clans to retreat again and again. In the battle, the white-clothed figure was surrounded by wind and snow. The power of time flowed 3 feet around her, making her invulnerable. In the fierce battle, the light of a secret technique flashed through the night. Combined with the power of the royal bloodline, its power was shocking. In the siege of the 4 emperors, Ji Ming stepped on water, and his figure flickered. It was hard to tell whether he was real or fake. A strange movement technique that had never been seen before, and combined with the power of time, the 4 emperors' attacks were immediately thwarted. Feng Tian Xingfeng. Seeing that their joint attack was not effective, Tian Xan formed a seal with his hands, and the secret technique of the wizard tribe was used. A strong wind blew to increase the speed of the 3 emperors. With the help of the secret technique of the wizard tribe, Hong Yuan, the crown prince, and Jin Lin, were like tigers that had grown wings. Their attacks became fiercer, and they did not leave any gaps. In the siege of the 3 emperors, the witch tribe and the 4 emperors gained the upper hand for the first time. In the battle, Ning Chen faced the impenetrable attacks of the 3 emperors, and he saw blood for the first time. The wind of the fists swept past, and time could not stop it. Ning Chen's arm was grazed by the wind, and blood splattered, dyeing his clothes red. Ning Chen's arm was injured, and he frowned. He raised his hand and touched the wound. Is that all you've got? If that's all you've got, you'll definitely lose today. As he spoke, the crown prince let out a deep shout. He opened and closed his hands, and a stone spear appeared. It was cold and sharp, and its killing intent was oppressive. With the appearance of the divine weapon, his momentum became even stronger. Together with the golden lion and the scaled race's empress, one attacking and one defending, they went all out to kill the people in front of them. Within 3 feet, the stone spear flashed past. The chi of time flowed and slowed down the speed of the divine weapon. Ning Chen used strange footwork to avoid one attack after another. Although he was still able to fight back, he was already at a disadvantage. Outside the battlefield, Yu Yao and Guxin watched the intense battle in front of them, and their expressions turned solemn. As expected, it was still too difficult. Against 4 Red Dust Realm descendants, even King Realm cultivators would have to fight seriously. Ness Yao spoke up and solemnly said, "Please wait a moment." Gu Xian's expression turned serious as he replied, "He did not ask for our help, which means that he still has some strength left. If we act rashly, we will only disrupt his plans." When Ness Yao heard this, his sword-wielding hand paused. His gaze was exceptionally heavy as he looked at the great battle in front of him. He had once sworn an oath in front of his royal father that he would retrieve the Yin Yang Nan Jade. Hence, in this battle, no matter what, he could not lose. The consequences of breaking an oath were known to the world. The might of heavenly punishment was unstoppable, and it was also because of this that the binding force of oaths on practitioners was so strong. In the battle, facing the increasingly fierce attacks of the 4 royal bloodline practitioners, Ning Chen's battle intent grew stronger as well. Light flickered, and he fought ferociously like a god. The 12 forms of spiritual rhino, every move shook the heavens and the earth. The 9 heavens star plucking hand, every move shook the stars. Using both techniques at the same time, even someone as strong as the 4 emperors did not dare to rashly go against him. His palm technique was world-shocking. Coupled with his peerless foundation, knowing destiny fully displayed his might. With a raise of his hand, he could move the heavens and earth and use yin and yang. The 4 emperors' expressions were solemn as they cautiously faced their enemies. Although they had the advantage, they did not dare to be careless. The battle reached its climax, and the 5 figures constantly intertwined. In an instant, Ning Chen raised his hand to grab onto Jin Lin Er's arm. His palm turned into a fist, and he punched towards the latter's chest. With a rumble, the heavy punch landed on her body. Jin Lin let out a muffled groan. Her slender hand gathered chi, and she fought back forcefully. Within 3 feet, time flowed, and Jin Lin Er's attack speed was restricted. Ning Chen stepped forward and dodged her palm power. He gathered chi with his finger and pointed at the scaled tribe royal princess chest again. The finger power entered her body, and blood splattered. Jin Lin kept retreating. Her absolute defense had been easily broken. In the battle, the other 3 royal bloodline practitioners were shocked. They did not understand what had happened. Something's not right. The crown prince looked at the golden scale divine garment on the scaled tribe royal princess chest. His expression darkened. The scaled tribe's defense should not have been broken so easily. Outside the battle, Gu Xen looked at the battle in front of him quietly. Coldness flashed in his eyes. It seemed that the sword from 2 years ago had finally taken effect. Now that Jin Lin Er's absolute defense had been broken, the 4 emperors' combined strength would be greatly reduced. How would Brother Ning deal with it? Just as everyone inside and outside the battle was shocked, a white-clothed figure passed by in the raging waves. Her speed was shocking. The 3 emperors came back to their senses. Just as they were about to help, it was already too late. Impossible. How can he be so fast? The crown prince's expression darkened. It's not that he's fast, it's that we're slow. Tian Xen looked at the surrounding nomological power and said with a serious expression. Ning Chen no longer hesitated. His body erupted, and the power of time instantly spread throughout the entire battle. The 3 emperors' speed was immediately restricted. It was too late to help. Under the shocked gazes of the 3 emperors, the white-clothed figure rushed to the scaled tribe royal princess and used the star-plucking ultimate move again. The thunderous palm imprinted on Jin Lin Er's chest. An unparalleled force erupted, and a waterfall of blood splashed out, dyeing the battlefield red. The merciless palm penetrated the scaled tribe royal princess body, and the peerless royal princess foundation was severely damaged. With a painful groan, Jin Lin retreated. Blood splattered all over her body, and the true chi in her body kept flowing out. Her cultivation that had just stepped into the red dust realm fell back to the 3rd realm in an instant. Everyone present was shocked by the palm. While the 3 emperors were shocked, Ning Chen's figure flashed again. He raised his hand to grab the crown prince's shoulder and pressed him into the ground. Thousand Earth rotation. The scroll of earth appeared again. The earth rumbled and then closed, trapping the enemy underground. Hong Yuan and Tian Xen came back to their senses and immediately rushed forward to help. Ning Chen sneered. He stomped his foot, and the earth within 100 miles shook. The earth surged into the sky and turned into 4 saint walls, blocking the surroundings. His expression turned serious as he said, "Brother Ning, we admit defeat in this battle. However, I sincerely advise you that the Emperor's son cannot die. Otherwise, no one will be able to bear the consequences." After saying that, Hong Yuan did not say anything else. He turned and walked out of the battle. After Hong Yuan left, Tian Xen took a deep look at the young man in front of him. He also did not stay any longer and turned to leave. The 4 emperors joined forces. One of them was crippled by 30% of his cultivation, while the other was heavily injured and on the verge of death. The shocking result was clearly displayed in front of everyone. The geniuses of the 100 clans were extremely shocked. Their eyes were filled with fear as they looked at the white-clothed figure in the battle. After the battle ended, outside the battle, Gu Xian and Yu Yao's raised hearts also relaxed. However, when they saw the fate of Jin Lin and the Crown Prince, their hearts were once again filled with worry. "I will remember today's humiliation. In the future, I will definitely return it 100 times. Not far away, Jin Lin said in a deep voice. As soon as she finished speaking, her body flashed with golden light. In the blink of an eye, she disappeared. Seeing this, Ning Chen's eyes flashed with coldness. He would visit the Scale clan sooner or later. The grudge of the Scale clan invading the inner realm would definitely not be forgotten just like that. Brother Ning, how do you want to deal with this crown prince of the Stone Spirit clan? Yuya walked forward and asked. Ning Chen sneered and said, his father trapped me in the space-time turbulence for more than a year. Now it's time to pay this debt. At this point, Ning Chen stepped in front of the heavily injured crown prince. He raised his hand and picked him up. Wind and snow filled the sky, and immediately poured into the latter's body. Ugh! Amidst the shrill and ear-piercing cries of pain, blood spurted out from the crown prince's body, dyeing everyone's vision red. Chapter 1026. After a shocking battle in the central Forbidden Ground, the four emperors lost miserably. Their alliance was broken and the battle ended gloomily. Hongyuan and Tianxin left with their followers, announcing the end of the battle. Jin Lin used a secret technique and left. After the battle, her triple success physique was destroyed and she fell from the red dust realm. Among the four emperors, DZ was the most miserable. His chest was penetrated by the fist and he was heavily injured and unconscious. Ningchen went up and picked up DZ. The wind and snow were wild, and the yellow spring was activated and sealed into DZ's body. Outside the battle, the geniuses of the 100 races were shocked when they saw DZ's miserable appearance. Many of them had personally experienced DZ's strength. He was almost invincible. They had never thought that he would be so weak in front of this person. Even the 4 Red Dust Realm heirs had been defeated. Who else in this ancient battlefield could do anything to this young man? Although they did not want to admit it, everyone knew that the result of the 100 races competition had been decided. There would be no more waves. The young man's strength could not be measured by common sense. Even if they worked together, they could not change this reality. Under the fearful gazes of the geniuses of the 100 races, a white-clothed figure stood quietly in front of the spatial turbulence. He looked at the celestial jades that were constantly being produced in the world and was not in a hurry to collect them. Behind him, Gu Exen looked at the person in front of him and sighed softly. He did not expect that in the end, the 4 royal bloodline heirs could not force him to use his sword. It was not that the 4 royal bloodline heirs were too weak. The person in front of him was not strong enough to crush the 4 of them. However, this person's grasp of opportunities was too terrifying. First, he used the old injury he had left on Jin Lin, 2 years ago to first heavily injure her. Then, he took advantage of the short opportunity when the 4 Emperors' alliance was broken to separate DZ from the other 2 royal bloodline heirs. He used all his strength to heavily injure DZ, making this battle completely without any suspense. It could be said that in every step of this battle, from the beginning to the end of the battle, the true deciding factor of victory or defeat was not the level of cultivation or battle strength, but the control of battle opportunities. In this aspect, the gap between the 4 emperors and the person in front of him could be said to be like heaven and earth. Ugh! In front of the spatial turbulence, a muffled groan suddenly sounded. The heavily injured and dying DZ woke up from his coma. His face was frighteningly pale. When he opened his eyes, what entered his eyes was the aftermath of a great battle. Not far away, a white-haired figure in plain clothes stood quietly like an immovable mountain. The crown prince struggled to get to his feet, but he felt that his Jinqi was severely restricted. In his Dantian Sea of Qi, a frigid aura permeated his meridians. I advise you not to recklessly use your Jinqi. Not far away, Ningchen shifted his gaze to the crown prince of the Rock Spirit clan and said indifferently, your Sea of Qi has been sealed. The more you use your true energy, the faster the coldness in your body will spread, and your pain will increase. Hearing those words, the crown prince's face darkened. He tried to drive his Jinqi to retaliate, but in the next moment, he felt excruciating pain all over his body, and a frigid chill seeped into every inch of his meridians. The unbearable pain was so intense that the crown prince groaned again, and his body trembled involuntarily. Do you believe me now? Ningchen looked at the crown prince and said calmly. He continued, your father tried to kill me before, and now it's your turn to pay for it. There are still 4 months before the 100 races, so I won't kill you for the time being. Cherish your last moments. Hearing those words, the crown prince clenched his fists tightly. Killing intent flickered in his eyes, but he didn't dare to act rashly. "Do you hate me?" Ning Chen said calmly. "Unfortunately, you're too weak. Even if you step into the red dust realm, you still can't change this fact. If it weren't for your father, you would have been a corpse by now. You should be glad that you have an Emperor Realm father, so you can live for another 4 months." His sarcasm was like a sharp blade stabbing into the crown prince's heart. He clenched his fists tightly, and the Jinqi in his body surged involuntarily, increasing the pain. 100 steps away, Gu Exen looked at the scene in front of him, and a light flashed in his eyes. Torturing and dealing such a blow to a successor of an imperial bloodline would definitely leave an indelible scar in his heart in the future. The path of cultivation was filled with danger at every step, and once there was a heart demon, it would sooner or later devour one's body. The onlooker sees more clearly than the person involved. At the side, Yu Yao saw through Ning Chen's intentions as well, and sighed in his heart. This was truly ruthless. 4 months was enough to plant a heart demon in the crown prince's heart and destroy his martial path. "Brother Ning, there are still 4 months left. Are we going to stay here?" Yu Yao took a step forward, looked at the person in front of him, and asked. "Amen." Ning Chen nodded. He looked towards Gu Exen at the side and said, "Does young Master Gu Exion's promise back then still count?" "Of course." Gu Exen replied with a stern expression. "All right," Ning Chen said seriously. "My request is very simple. In these 4 months, young Master Gu Exion and brother Yu Yao, please stay here to protect the divine jade." Hearing this, Gu Exion's expression turned serious, and he said, "What are you planning to do?" The corner of Ning Chen's lips curled up into a cold smile and said, "So many things have happened here. After we leave, it will definitely not be peaceful. It's never wrong to prepare some life-saving measures." After saying that, Ning Chen looked towards the two of them and said, "In these 4 months, I'll have to trouble the two of you." Although they did not know what the person in front of them was planning to do, Gu Exien and Yu Yao still nodded and agreed to it. Ning Chen turned around and looked at the space-time turbulence in front of him. Without saying anything else, he stepped forward, picked up the crown prince whose cultivation had been sealed, and walked into it. This crown prince could not be left here, and had to be brought along by his side. It was not that he was measuring the stature of a gentleman with his own yardstick, but rather, this person's identity was too special, and he had to be careful. In the end, Yu Yao and Gu Exien were still members of the royal clan, and their standpoints were different from his, so he could not fully trust them. As for the gains and losses of the divine jade, he was not worried. Yu Yao knew that he had already sworn an oath in front of King Shuri that he would help Shuri Royal City obtain the Yin Yang Non Jade. Hence, in this matter, he was on the same page as Yu Yao. This Shuri Royal City's young master would definitely protect these divine jade with all his might as well. And this Gu Exen was a smart person. In a situation where he could no longer obtain the Yin Yang Non Jade, he would not make a foolish choice. Under the two's gazes, Ning Chen carried the crown prince and walked into the space-time turbulence. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared. Outside the Blood Moon ancient battlefield, in the sky above the ancient desolate plains, the void swirled, and Emperor Go walked out with a walking stick in his hand. The brilliance in his aged eyes was constantly jumping. What a ruthless brat. It seemed like 4 months later, the ancient desolate plains would no longer be peaceful. Just as the situation in the ancient battlefield was settled, in the various territories of the primal devil realm, the kings of the 100 races opened their eyes and looked towards the direction of the ancient desolate plains. The time was almost up. What would the final result be? In the center of the primal devil realm, in the boundless devil domain, an unusually powerful devilish might filled the air. In the millions of kilometers of territory, there were countless heavenly devil clan branches of various sizes. According to legends, the heavenly devil clan was similar to the Phoenix clan and the Dragon clan, and their ability to reproduce was extremely low. Above the ancient desolate plains, Go Huang stood in the air, looking at the experts that were heading towards the ancient desolate plains. He sighed softly in his heart. Go Huang. 4 kings from the ancient clothing walked out from the void, looking at the Go Huang in front of them, and said respectfully, "It's almost time." Go Huang nodded and said calmly, "Begin the preparations." The 4 kings from the ancient clothing replied in a deep voice. Shortly after, their figures flashed, and they separated into 4 directions, forming seals to prepare for the opening of the ancient battlefield. 4 seals were formed, and heaven and earth trembled. 4 pillars of light soared into the sky, stabilizing the ancient desolate plains. Go Huang stood in the void, looking at the gradually stabilizing void in front of him, and his old face gradually became solemn. Too many things had happened in the ancient blood moon battlefield, and he hoped that there wouldn't be too much chaos after the ancient battlefield descended. Especially the Go Huang from the Stone Tribe. If he took action, it would be troublesome. The trouble that the young man had caused this time was not small. In the ancient blood moon battlefield, many figures gathered outside the central forbidden grounds, but no one dared to take half a step closer to the central forbidden grounds. In 4 months, every inch of the central forbidden grounds was stained with blood. After knowing Ming had left, the geniuses of the 100 tribes became restless again, and they joined forces several times to fight for the celestial jades. However, what made the geniuses of the 100 tribes despair was that even though the terrifying young man had left, the chasm in front of them was still insurmountable. Under the Tai-In sword, corpses were piled up into mountains. Young Master Zhu Yang, who was dressed in dark red, looked delicate and harmless, but the sword in his hand was so cold that it sent chills down one's spine. Boom! 3 years had passed, and the blood moon in the 9 heavens shook, and the entire ancient battlefield shook violently. Chapter 1027. The time limit of 3 years in the supreme desolate ancient plains was up. The 4 kings joined forces and formed 4 seals, opening the blood moon ancient battlefield once again. The ancient battlefield appeared once more, and the heavens and earth shook. In the sky above the ancient desolate plains, an illusory secret realm appeared. The 2 realms connected, and the 100 races competition officially ended. At the moment the ancient battlefield opened, war chariots galloped over from all over the primordial desolate ancient plains. Desolate beasts pulled the chariots in an astonishing manner. Numerous red dust realm cultivators appeared successively. They were the top experts of the various clans, and many of them were close to the king realm, causing their imposing auras to be extremely shocking. The war chariot streaked across the sky, covering the sky and covering the sun. Soon after, the void began to tremble. King-level figures began to appear. Their terrifying power was difficult for the heaven and earth to bear, and it began to distort intensely. A king appeared, his figure hidden in the void, unable to be seen clearly. However, that abnormally powerful aura was so heavy that it made people gasp for breath, not daring to approach. Is everyone here? Since you're all here, let's witness the final result. As he spoke, the sky above the ancient desolate plains was filled with tens of thousands of rays of light. Amidst the auspicious colors that filled the sky, Go Huang appeared. His aura suppressed the 9 heavens, intimidating the experts of the 100 clans. Go Huang! The experts of the 100 races bowed in unison. Emperor Dao experts were supreme existences in the entire primordial demon realm. No matter what their stance was, they could not be disrespectful. Go Huang nodded his head and said in a hoarse voice, "Bring them out." In the 4 corners of the ancient desolate plains, the 4 kings in ancient attire received the order and unleashed their full cultivation. With the help of the 4 great formations, their power spread across the entire blood moon ancient battlefield. At the same time, in the ancient battlefield, heaven and earth shook. The 4 kings' power descended, and with the support of the formation, their might was world-shaking. In front of the central forbidden grounds, the young powerhouses sensed something and looked up into the sky. Their eyes were filled with relief. It was finally over. The last 4 months of waiting was simply torture for them. In the sky, the power of the 4 kings descended, transforming into 4 bridges that led the heavens' favorites away. Let's go. All over the ancient battlefield, young geniuses stepped onto the heavenly bridge and left one after another. In the center of the forbidden grounds, in front of the spatial turbulence, Gu Xian and Yu Yao looked to the front, and a serious look flashed past their eyes. Why hasn't he come out yet? Let's leave first. Nes Yao looked towards the person beside him and said. Gu Xian nodded and walked towards the heavenly bridge together. The two of them left. Within the turbulence of space-time, a terrifying spatial storm swept out. The white-clothed figure stood within, unmoved. In the skies above the ancient desolate plains, the prodigies of the 100 clans walked out one after another. Yu Yao and Gu Xin appeared right after them, attracting everyone's attention. In the last 4 months, their swords had been stained with too much blood, leaving a deep impression. The geniuses of the 100 clans all came out. In the air, in the war chariots, the top cultivators from the various clans looked at the geniuses of their own clans with concern. There are still 2 people who haven't come out. In front of the 4-sided array, an old man in ancient robes spoke in a deep voice. Wait! Above the void, Go Huang said indifferently. Yes. The 4 kings accepted the order and continued to maintain the 4 corners great formation, waiting for the last 2 people to appear. While waiting, Emperor Go looked at the geniuses of the 100 clans and said calmly, Everyone, take out the immortal jades you have obtained. The heavens' favorites were silent. They handed over all the celestial jades they obtained from the ancient battlefield without holding anything back. They knew very well how unwise it was to play tricks in front of an emperor. In the next moment, in the ancient desolate plains, a powerful spiritual energy fluctuation appeared. Thousands, tens of thousands of celestial jades appeared, piling up into small mountains, shocking everyone. Among them, in front of the 3 imperial descendants, there were hundreds of thousands of celestial jades piled up. The number was shocking, causing the top cultivators of the various clans to raise their eyebrows. As expected of the imperial family. The difference in their levels is too great. In the middle of the hundreds of war chariots, a middle-aged man in a green robe sighed softly. Something's not right. There seems to be one person missing. Beside the green-robed man, a beautiful woman said sternly. The green-robed man's gaze swept across the heavens' favorites of the 100 clans, and his eyes narrowed. Indeed, one person was missing. He heard that the emperor of the Stone clan was also participating in this 100 clans competition. Why was he not among the people who came out? Emperor Go, shouldn't you give me an explanation? At this moment, a majestic voice sounded in the distant sky. Under everyone's shocked gazes, the starry sky within 10,000 miles shook, and a figure in a golden robe appeared. Under the pressure of the aura that shook the 9 heavens, everything fell, unable to withstand the might of an emperor. Emperor of Stone. Seeing who it was, everyone was shocked. The emperor of the Stone clan had actually come personally. Seeing the figure in front of him, the emperor of Stone's eyes flashed with killing intent. He raised his right hand and a dim light rose rapidly. You leave first. King Sunrise glanced at the young man behind him and said. Ningchen nodded and bowed politely. Thank you, Senior King Sunrise. Then, without any hesitation, Ningchen walked out of the chaotic space. The Emperor of Stone's expression darkened. He looked at the Emperor of Sunrise Royal City who was blocking his way and said coldly, Do you really think you can protect him? How would I know if I don't try? King Sunrise replied calmly. Just as the two were confronting each other, Ningchen walked out of the chaotic space. In front of him, an old woman with a walking stick appeared. Seeing him, she sighed softly. You're in trouble. Ningchen nodded. I know. Seeing the calm expression of the young man in front of him, Emperor Go was surprised. Aren't you afraid at all? Ningchen smiled. Although some people want my life, there are also some people who don't want me to die for the time being. So, there's nothing to be afraid of. Hearing the former's words, Emperor Go sighed again in his heart. This young man was really incredible. It seemed that when he decided to attack the prince, he had already calculated today's outcome. You go out first. I'll stop the battle inside. Emperor Go said. Thank you. Ningchen bowed. Without saying anything else, he stepped onto the sky bridge and walked out of the ancient battlefield. Ning Chen's appearance in the ancient desolate plain made Yu Yao and Gu Xian heave a sigh of relief. The two of them walked forward and handed over a ring each. A mustard seed space was the pinnacle of artifact refinement among the 100 races. No matter how good or bad it was a rare treasure. Thank you. Ning Chen took the rings from their hands and accepted the immortal jades. Then he returned the rings to them. Be careful. The Emperor of Stone is a very protective person. You hurt the prince, so he won't let it go. Yu Yao reminded. It's fine. Ning Chen replied softly. He turned to look at the ancient battlefield behind him and narrowed his eyes. Those 3 people should be coming out soon. Just as he was thinking, 3 unusually powerful auras appeared in the sky. In the golden divine sun, King Shuri stood in the air. Even in the face of 2 emperors, he was not inferior. The auras of the 2 emperors became more and more shocking. Emperor Go stood between the 2 and said in a deep voice, "Now is not the time to fight. The people of the Celestial Devil Imperial family will be here soon. The young people here are all candidates for the gold roll. Hurting any of them may cause the Celestial Devil Imperial family to be unhappy." Emperor Go's face darkened when he heard this. He looked at the plain-clothed young man below with killing intent. "Young man, hand over the prince." Emperor Go looked at the people below and said seriously. He looked at King Shuri, Emperor Go, and the 3rd crown prince of the Celestial Devil royal family standing in the air. After a long time, he snorted and left with his crown prince. Not far away, Xian Qing quietly watched this scene. She shifted her gaze to the white-robed young man who was the focal point of this matter. A strange light flashed in her eyes. It seemed like the root of all this was because of this young man. He had some understanding of the Stone Clan's imperial prince's strength. A Red Dust Realm powerhouse with a sovereign bloodline was considered a top powerhouse among the younger generation. He did not expect him to end up in such a miserable state. Under everyone's gaze, Ning Chen's expression did not change. He was still indifferent. "Young man, please take out the celestial jades you obtained from the ancient battlefield." Emperor Go said calmly. Ning Chen nodded. He flipped his right hand, and his true essence overflowed. The yellow spring seal was activated. In an instant, an incomparably majestic spirit chi surged out. In an instant, it transformed into a huge spirit chi whirlpool and unceasingly spread in all directions. When everyone saw this, they were shocked by the spiritual chi fluctuations in front of them. The next moment, millions of spiritual jades appeared out of thin air in front of everyone's eyes. They were like a small mountain piled up in front of them. The spiritual chi was turbulent and abnormally heavy. Even though it was not the first time they saw this, the geniuses of the 100 clans were still shocked and could not recover for a while. Impossible! In addition to the geniuses of the 100 clans, the Red Dust Realm powerhouses from various clans on the chariots were all in disbelief when they saw this scene. In front of everyone, Xian Qing narrowed her eyes slightly. It seemed that the final winner of the 100 clans competition was the young man in front of her. Although it was unexpected, it was not unacceptable. Since the Thearcha's son had been defeated by him, it was reasonable for him to take the first place of the 100 clans competition. Emperor Go, the result has been decided. Can I open the golden roll now? Xian Qing came back to his senses and looked at the emperor in the light. "Third prince, please." Emperor Go nodded and said calmly, "Thank you." Hearing the emperor in front of him agree, Xian Qing thanked him politely. He took a step forward and flipped the golden roll in his hand. In an instant, the golden roll rose into the air and shone brightly. When the golden roll appeared, the 100 clans bowed. Under everyone's gaze, the golden roll slowly opened and 10 names appeared in the void. The top 10 of the 100 clans competition were all on the golden roll. Their auras were majestic and made people look at them. At the top of the golden roll was the name Ning Chen. He was an existence that suppressed the geniuses of the 100 clans. Up in the sky, Go Huang looked at Jin Bang as a tinge of regret flashed across his aged eyes. From today onwards, this hot potato would no longer be in his hands. With a flip of his hand, the yin and yang qi between heaven and earth gathered rapidly. In the dazzling black and white brilliance, a bead that contained chaos appeared in front of everyone. Inyannan Jade. When the experts of the 100 clans saw this, their expressions changed. They finally saw the legendary imperial treasure today. Inyannan Jade appeared. In the golden divine sun, King Shuri's body trembled involuntarily. After a while, he recovered. Not far away, Ningchen looked at King Shuri's reaction from the corner of his eyes. After a while, he looked away. "Young man, this is your reward." In the void, Emperor Go waved his hand and gave the Inyannan Jade to Ningchen. Ningchen took the divine jade and put it away without looking at it. He said respectfully, "Thank you, Emperor Go. This jade is extraordinary. You have to take care of it carefully. Do you understand?" Emperor Go looked at the young man in front of him and reminded him. "I understand." Ningchen replied softly. "It's good that you understand." Emperor Go nodded slightly and looked at the third prince of the celestial devil imperial family. He said, "Third prince, my task is done. I leave the rest to you." Xianqing nodded and said politely, "Farewell, Emperor Go." At last, Emperor Go looked at the young man in plain clothes not far away. He didn't say anything more and left the Taihuang ancient plain. Everyone had their own path. She wouldn't interfere too much. This young man was good. If he could continue to grow, he would definitely be one of the imperial realm experts in the future. After Emperor Go left, the pressure on everyone's hearts was reduced by more than half. The experts of the mortal realms secretly breathed a sigh of relief. If possible, they really didn't want to face an imperial realm expert. The feeling of not being able to control life and death was really not a good experience. In 3 months, please go to Jinling City in the primordial demon region. I will wait for you there. I hope you can arrive on time. As he spoke, Xianqing raised his right hand. Suddenly, the golden rank shone brightly and spread to the entire Taihuang ancient plain. After a while, a shocking scene occurred. In front of everyone, mountains of celestial jades disappeared into thin air, turning into flowing light and disappearing into the golden rank. Ningchen looked at the celestial jades disappearing into the golden rank. His finger moved involuntarily. Celestial jades were rare resources. Everyone knew that. Such a large number of celestial jades were obtained by the celestial devil imperial family. He admitted that he also wanted those celestial jades. Unfortunately, now was not the time to oppose the celestial devil imperial family. "Everyone, see you in 3 months." Ningchen returned the greeting. Xiao Xiao smiled. "I've never heard of you before, but from now on, I'll remember you." "Miss Xiao Xiao is too polite," said Ningchen calmly. In the golden sun in the sky, King Shuri looked at the 2 people below, and his deep eyes flashed with a little light. With the arrival of the King Realm power, Ningchen took a step back and retreated 30 meters, putting away the Inyannan Jade again. In front of the throne, King Shuri's face darkened when he saw this. He asked, "What does Mr. Ning mean by this?" Ningchen looked at the king in front of the throne and said coldly, "Senior King Shuri, as promised, I helped you get back the Inyannan Jade. Shouldn't you release winter rain and summer solstice?" Hearing this, King Shuri's expression turned cold and he said, "Those 2 girls have already left Shuri Royal City with you. Why do you still want them from me?" King Shuri knows best where they are now. Emperor Go and the Saintess of the Witch Tribe have never been wrong. "I trust them," Ningchen said coldly. "Emperor Go?" Hearing this name, King Shuri's eyes flashed coldly. That old woman even intervened. No wonder she repeatedly protected the person in front of him in the Taihuang ancient land. In the hall, Ningchen looked at the reaction of the king in front of the throne, and his guess was finally confirmed. What he said before was just a test. Although Emperor Go had helped him several times, it was impossible for him to offend a top king who was comparable to an emperor. As for Tianxin, although she was the saintess of the witch tribe, her strength was far inferior to King Shuri's. It was impossible for her to see through King Shuri's secrets. "I don't know why Emperor Go would frame me, but I can tell you clearly that those 2 girls are not in my hands." King Shuri looked at the young man in the hall and said in a deep voice, "In that case, King Shuri, do you dare to swear that if you dare, I will give you the yin-yang non-jade with both hands? Ningchen said calmly. Are you insulting me? King Shuri's expression turned cold, and murderous intent appeared for the first time. If you haven't done anything shameful, why are you afraid of swearing? Ningchen said indifferently. What I do is none of your business. Do you think you have a choice in my sunrise royal city? King Shuri said coldly. Why not? Ningchen's expression turned cold as well. Ignorant junior. At this point, King Shuri didn't want to say anything more. He took a step forward and disappeared instantly. In the hall, Ningchen narrowed his eyes. Without any hesitation, he flashed out of the hall. With a loud rumble, Ningchen came out of the hall. In the hall, golden flames soared into the sky, and the divine sun soared into the sky, illuminating the entire sunrise royal city. When a king attacked, its power was earth-shattering. The royal city shook, and tens of thousands of people were frightened. In the small courtyard in the west, Yu Yao sensed it. His expression changed. He waved his hand, took the ancient sword on the stone table, and rushed towards the palace. In front of the palace, golden divine sunlight shone in all directions. King Shuri stood in it, and his pressure kept rising. Chapter 1030. Thousands of miles away from Sunrise City, the heavenly fire was burning the prairie, and the knowing destiny sword appeared. After accumulating the sword for decades, the natal sword, which was broken in the divine punishment, was finally restored. It was tempered by the origin of the divine tree, and the divine weapon appeared for the first time. Once the sword was unsheathed, boundless sword pressure swept out. Above the sky, thunder and lightning roared, and the vision was shocking. When the knowing destiny sword appeared, heaven and earth shook, and the whole sky dimmed. Thunder and lightning flashed, and the heavenly fire was blasted away. Thunder and lightning fell and lingered on the natal sword. Suddenly, the blood mist scattered, and the origin of the four poles lingered out. Water, fire, wind, and thunder coiled into the sky, and the sword realm opened instantly. Water and fire opened the sword realm. Within thousands of miles, sword intent spread. In the shocking scene, the whole wilderness disintegrated for no reason. The earth rose and the void fell. Inside the sword realm, the divine sun rose. King Shuri looked at the surrounding scene with a solemn expression. The power of the small world. Just now, he was in the third realm, but he could comprehend the power that even strong people in the mortal dust realm couldn't control. This man's potential was too amazing. He must not be allowed to live. Thinking of this, King Shuri no longer hesitated. He raised his hands, and in an instant, golden flames surged out. The king's power burst out, containing amazing power of rules. It could burn the sky and boil the sea, frightening gods and demons. In an instant, a golden spear appeared in the golden flames, surrounded by flames with a terrifying temperature. The king held the weapon, and the violent king's power spread out. In the face of an enemy with endless potential, King Shuri didn't dare to be careless. He knew better than anyone the consequences of letting a tiger go back to the mountain. Boom! Above the sky, thunder and lightning shocked the world, and the heavenly fire spread and descended again. King Shuri's expression turned cold. He turned over his palm, and the golden divine sun around him shone brightly, blocking the power of the heavenly fire. How does it feel to be burned by the heavenly fire? 3 years ago, you forced me to make an oath. Did you think that you would taste the divine punishment today? Ningchen waved his sword to cut the heavenly fire falling from the sky. He looked at the king in front of him and said coldly. King Shuri snorted and said, "As long as you die, the divine punishment will disappear. What's there to be afraid of?" Unfortunately, I think so too. Only one person can bear the wrath of heaven. As a senior, King Shuri has lived too long. It's time for you to die. As soon as he finished speaking, the sword in Ningchen's hand moved. It pierced through the veins in his arm, and a blood-red light rose. The sword's power was boundless, shocking the world. The sky-severing sword instantly split the sky apart. The frightening sword light flashed past and instantly reached the divine sun. You overestimate yourself. Seeing this, King Shuri sneered and threw out the golden spear in his hand. With a boom, the spear shattered the sword light. Golden flames erupted. Amidst the flames, the divine spear's momentum did not decrease. It was like a rainbow piercing through the sky as it swept towards the plain-clothed young man. As the divine spear approached, Ning Chen clenched his left fist. Instantly, the ground rose and turned into mountain peaks that blocked the attack. The divine spear collided with the mountain peak, causing a rumbling sound. The king's might was shocking, and the mountain peak collapsed one after another, unable to stop the king's might. However, this momentary delay was more than enough time. Ning Chen took a step forward and instantly appeared in front of the king warrior. The divine sword was waved, and the sky was filled with red. The sword was reborn, and its power was so terrifying that it made people tremble. Wherever the sword passed, nothing could survive. King Shuri narrowed his eyes and raised his hand to catch the sword. With a violent rumble, the heavenly fire on the divine sword instantly multiplied and eroded the king's body. The sword's might was shocking, and the heavenly might was even more unparalleled. Ning Chen used the power of the heavenly fire around him to confront the king warrior. Being attacked by the heavenly fire, King Shuri frowned and threw out a backhand palm, forcefully fighting back. Ning Chen took a step and jumped to avoid the king's palm. With a flash of his left hand, thunder exploded in the sky, and a broken green cauldron appeared. In the cauldron, a celestial sword floated up and down. The sword was surging with Qi. King Shuri's eyes darkened, and he dispersed the heavenly fire around him. He looked at the green cauldron in the sky, and a serious look flashed across his face. What an amazing Qi! The thunder of this cauldron was extraordinary. This was a gift prepared for the Devil Lord, but now it's given to Senior King Shuri. As he spoke, the yellow spring around Ning Chen was activated, isolating all the laws and forces. He held the trapping celestial with his left hand and pulled out the sword. The divine prohibition was the only one in history. Ning Chen was surrounded by strange light, and the thunder was surging, constantly attacking the power of the yellow spring. However, it was difficult to break through the barrier for a while. Knowing that the divine prohibition couldn't stop him for too long, Ning Chen didn't want to waste any more time. The immortal sword in his hand activated the thunder and slashed down from the sky. The endless heavenly might rapidly impacted the two's protective vital energy, and the red flames spread and engulfed the two. Knowing that he couldn't fight for a long time, King Shuri shouted, and the divine sun around him became extremely bright. The king transformed into a three-legged golden crow, and the golden flames swept out. The power was incredible. Seeing that the killing move was about to come, Ning Chen's eyes narrowed. He put the swords in his hands together, and the brilliance soared into the sky. The move that had never appeared in the world for 10 years appeared for the first time. Sword Emperor of the Great Sword Realm. They were gifts from the heavens, and the conditions for the formation of each divine inhibition were extremely harsh. Therefore, in the primal demon realm, which was not good at inhibitions and formations, almost no one had seen the three great divine inhibitions before. The 100 clans had their leaders, and the human race had its support. The 100 clans were good at strength, and the human race was good at weapons. In the ancient times, before the 4 immortal realms intervened in the war between the 2 realms, the human race used various restrictions and formations to fight against the 100 clans. Flowing light flashed in the Yin and Yang formation. Ji Ming and King Shuri were fighting again. Both of them had amazing weapons and power. Both of them had unparalleled abilities. Every move they made could destroy the world. In the battle between the two, the wasteland continued to crack. Huge cracks spread thousands of miles away. Waves of dust rose, and the sword chi was like frost. The fierce battle had already lasted hundreds of rounds. It was noon, and the chi of extreme yang was hot and threatening. The power of the heavenly fire increased several times, and the scene of the world burning completely engulfed the two figures. The palm and the sword collided, and heaven and earth tilted. The heavenly fire burned above, and the Yin thunder threatened to kill below. When the king was restrained, the deadly sword light danced. The four origin powers, water, fire, wind, and thunder, surged with astonishing power. 100 suns returned to the east. In the heavenly fire, Ning Chen activated his extreme yuan, and the sun scripture appeared again. The heavenly fire gathered and turned into 100 suns. The 100 suns soared into the sky, and the world changed dramatically. After a moment, the 100 suns fell. The extreme yuan on the sword condensed the power of the heavenly fire, and the sword's suns fell like meteors. When the peerless king was shaken, the whole wasteland was destroyed. The ground collapsed, and the sword's suns blasted out huge pits one after another. The heavenly fire burned, and the land within 10,000 miles was scorched. It was a shocking move. King Shuri's expression turned serious. He flipped his hands, and golden divine spears appeared in front of him. Golden flames rose, and the divine spears pierced through the air. With a loud boom, heaven and earth cracked. The void between the two collapsed violently, and the aftermath shook the two away. The spilled blood dyed the ground red. After one move, both of them were seriously injured and flew hundreds of feet away. Awesome! When he landed, Ning Chen raised his hand to wipe the blood from the corner of his mouth. He smiled instead of being angry. He hadn't experienced such a hearty battle for a long time. It would be a pity if there were no opponents at the same level as the martial artists and swordsmen. In the Blood Moon ancient battlefield, although the geniuses of the 100 clans were not weak, they were not strong enough. How torturous was it to not be able to use a sword for 10 years? King Shuri was very strong, so strong that he made Ning Chen feel a strong threat to his life. But it was also because of this that he was so excited about this battle. Again! The demonic power in Ning Chen's body burst out. The two of them merged, and his eyes instantly turned dark. Ning Chen didn't waste any time. With a flash, he rushed toward Shuri Imperial City in the distance. Knowing destiny moved. Above the 9 heavens, the heavenly fire moved with him. The momentum of burning the sky became more and more shocking. Ning Chen wasn't afraid at all. After 100 years of suffering, he was no longer an ignorant person. He wouldn't be easily taken away by heaven again. The flowing light flashed quickly and soon arrived above Shuri Imperial City. The divine sword slashed down with the power of heaven's punishment and crashed into the Imperial City's formation. An earth-shattering tremor sounded. The Imperial City's formation cracked. Ning Chen slashed again. Then he stepped into the air and fell quickly. The sword light broke the Imperial City's formation. Ning Chen flashed past and entered the Imperial City. There was a shocking commotion. In the Imperial City, the 100 races looked at the horizon with shock. In the Imperial Palace of Shuri, flowing light flashed. Knowing destiny returned. Without any hesitation, he stabbed the divine weapon in his hand into the ground. Boundless cold air spread out rapidly. Before the Imperial guards around the Imperial Palace could react, they were affected by the terrifying cold air. Their bodies were quickly frozen. In a few breaths' time, everything in Shuri Imperial Palace was frozen. Whether it was dead or alive, they were all sealed in ice. Knowing that King Shuri, who was thousands of miles away, couldn't be trapped for long, Ning Chen chose the most violent method. He directly froze the entire Imperial Palace. After doing this, Ning Chen's figure flashed past. He slashed open one palace after another to search for Dongyu and summer solstice. Under the scorching sun, the palaces in Shuri Imperial Palace kept collapsing. In a few breaths' time, more than half of the palace was destroyed. In the depths of the palace, golden flames rose. A golden divine sun floated. In the divine sun, the void was distorted and couldn't be seen clearly. The palace was destroyed. Ning Chen's figure found the last place. He looked at the rising divine sun in front of him, and his eyes darkened. The foundation of Shuri Imperial City. If he guessed correctly, this divine sun was suppressing the hidden foundation of Shuri Imperial City. If Dongyu and summer solstice weren't hidden elsewhere, they might be suppressed here. Ning Chen looked at the heavenly fire in the sky that was getting more and more terrifying. A cold smile flashed across his face. This time, the heavens had to be on his side. Without hesitation, Ningchen opened his eyes. In the surging demonic aura, the 100-foot demonic body appeared in the world. The heavenly demon shook the sun. In the rumbling, the 100-foot heavenly demon grabbed the divine sun with both hands and forcefully moved it away. As the divine sun moved, the entire Shuri imperial city shook instantly. Waves of terrifying power were awakened rapidly. The strongest cultivator was even comparable to the current King Shuri. "Gosh, it's your turn to perform now." Ningchen looked ahead and said coldly. As soon as he finished speaking, endless heavenly fire in the sky started to swirl wildly. Sensing the aura below that shouldn't exist in this era, a terrifying heavenly might suddenly descended. As the heavenly fire descended, its power increased tenfold or even hundredfold. Before the foundation of Shuri Imperial City could fully recover, it had already swallowed it. Under the divine sun, the figures of two women appeared. They looked exactly the same, and it was clear who they were. Seeing the two women, Ningchen took a step forward and instantly appeared in front of the two women. He raised his hand, grabbed the two of them, and sped away. "Retreat!" In front of the divine sun, the demonic body's expression turned serious. Between his hands, a majestic demonic aura turned into chains and locked the divine sun. Then, the 100-foot demonic body stepped on the chains and left with Ningchen. As the divine sun left the city, the entire imperial city became much dimmer. The glory that symbolized the immortality of Shuri Imperial City was now taken away by someone else. After successfully rescuing the two women, Ningchen's figure quickly flew toward the west. He didn't dare to stop for even a moment. Behind him, in Shuri Imperial Palace, heavenly fire burned the world. Waves of terrifying power erupted to resist the heavenly might. However, the heavenly might was unstoppable. The stronger the resistance, the more terrifying the heavenly fire's power was. Although the punishment from the heavens came late, it was even fiercer when it arrived. The blazing flames engulfed the entire Shuri Imperial Palace. The red heavenly fire purified all the ominous and filthy things in the world. The foundation of Shuri Imperial City was destroyed in one day. Thousands of miles away from Shuri Imperial City, King Shuri, who was trapped in a mountain, felt the drastic change in Shuri Imperial City. He was furious. His terrifying king's power kept bombarding the mountain. After a few breaths, it broke out of the seal. "You're the one who asked for it." The king was enraged. His cultivation erupted. The golden light was dazzling. In the west of Imperial City, Ningchen felt it. He took a step forward and sped up. Behind him, the demonic body locked the divine sun and refined it as he hurried. Thousands of miles away, Ningchen looked back at the divine sun that was locked by the demonic body. He said in a low voice, "Can you refine it? If you can't, then destroy it." "This thing is useful. It can't be destroyed. I'll find a way to seal it first." The demonic body responded. Demonic chi surged around him, swallowing the divine sun and sealing its power. Ningchen looked behind him. His expression turned serious. King Shuri had broken the seal and should catch up soon. Chapter 1033. In front of Mount Sanwei, Jiming showed up and sent Dong Yu and Summer Solstice back as promised. Without any delay, he headed west. Behind him, the powerful king's aura was getting closer and closer. The peerless king came with anger, swearing to kill the one who broke the promise. Under the bright sun, two streams of light flashed past like shooting stars and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Outside Borderline Mountain, a figure in plain clothes came and went straight in without stopping. Not long after Jiming entered Borderline Mountain, the divine sun rose behind him. King Shuri's figure flashed past and quickly chased after him. In Borderline Mountain, a king entered. His powerful aura was so dazzling that countless beasts in the mountain were awakened. Their eyes were fierce. Suddenly, a goshawk split the sky with a powerful aura. It spread its wings, covering the sky and the sun. In front of him, Ningchen looked at the sky with a cold smile. He stepped forward and increased his speed by 30%. In the void, the goshawk saw the golden figure below and swooped down. Its powerful aura was not inferior to the king of the 100 clans. One of the overlords of Borderline Mountain challenged the Lord of Shuri City to protect his territory. You don't know what's good for you. In the golden divine sun, King Shuri looked at the goshawk descending from the sky. Murderous intent flashed across his face. He stepped in the air and jumped up to meet it. The king moved to kill. His hands gathered the wind and clouds and tore it apart. In an instant, a horrifying crack appeared in the void. The goshawk's body was directly split from the middle. Blood spurted out like rain. In just one move, a king-level beast was beheaded. The terrifying lord of Shuri City had shown his amazing strength. In front of him, Ning Chen felt the aura behind him. His face turned colder. He continued to rush forward at full speed. Where can you escape to? Behind him, King Shuri said in a low voice. He rushed out and chased after Ning Chen. In the ninth heaven, the heavenly fire rolled. Endless red flames fell and swallowed Ji Ming's body. The heavenly punishment was endless. Its power was extremely shocking. However, in the heavenly fire, the figure in plain clothes moved forward quickly. It seemed that he was not affected at all. In the divine sun, King Shuri looked at the plain-clothed figure in the heavenly fire in the distance, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. This man had a special power that could resist the divine punishment. Was it the secret method of the Celestial Devil clan? However, such a powerful secret technique could only be mastered by the royal family. The heavenly demon bloodline in this young man was not as pure as the royal family's. He was clearly not a direct descendant of the royal family. While Yi Futian was thinking, the two of them flashed past. The sword realm opened, and the emperor descended. The heavens felt the threat from the humans in front of them. The power of the heavenly fire rose rapidly to fight against the power of the small world. Open! Ning Chen raised his hand, and 10,000 swords formed an inescapable net. They slashed open the power of the heavenly fire and sealed the power of the world. Devour! The power of the world was separated. Ning Chen looked at the resentful clouds not far away and commanded. The resentful clouds roared, unable to contain their excitement. Immediately, they swirled crazily. The will spread out and devoured the heavenly fire. In the small world, Ning Chen supported the sword realm while looking ahead. He squinted his eyes. This heavens could really devour the power of the world to strengthen itself. If there was no limit to its growth, wouldn't it mean that one day, it could really fight against a world and even dominate the human world? Everything had its pros and cons. This heavens and earth already had its own will. If it could be used by him, it would naturally be of great help to him. If it rebelled, it would also bring him and even the entire human world a lot of trouble. While Ning Chen was thinking, the resentful clouds swirled in the small world, continuously devouring the power of the heavenly fire from the world. As its power rose rapidly, the resentful clouds turned into a fiery red color. It was dazzling. In the resentful clouds, as its power rose, the will of the heavens and earth resisted fiercely again, attacking the divine prohibition seal in his body. In the small world, Ning Chen felt the resentful clouds' movement in front of him. His lips curled into a cold smile. He raised his right hand, grabbed the resentful clouds directly, and pressed them down with a loud boom. The shattered space brought about a waterfall of cloud chi. The resentful clouds roared fiercely, begging for mercy in fear. You better behave. If there is a next time, I can't guarantee that I will have the patience to tolerate your rebellion. Ning Chen said coldly. Then, the demonic chi around him surged and swallowed the resentful clouds again. In the next moment, the crimson resentful clouds appeared in his Dantian's sea of chi. After the lesson just now, they were much more stable. Ning Chen turned around and looked at the Dragon Emperor Mountain in the distance. On the mountain, the young lord of Sunrise Royal City was no longer there. There was only the desolation after the battle. It was a ghastly sight. After staring for a long time, Ning Chen sighed again. He turned around and continued to rush towards the west. At the same time, in the southwest direction of the primordial demon region, terrifying demonic chi surged in a demon cave. It was dense and heavy, causing people to shudder. In front of the demon cave, An old man in linen clothes looked at the demon cave in front of him. A wisp of relief flashed through his aged eyes.